looking to revive Elizabeth convention series both virtually and in person. President Trump made his first acceptance speech in the White House. Asma Khalid, NPR News. President Trump was scheduled to Jacksonville, Florida, after pulling the event out of North Carolina, canceled amid a surge in new coronavirus cases in Florida. On a Fox News panel today, Trump said the White House is a perfect alternative.
I think it's a beautiful alternative. The building I'm there right now. I spend a lot of time here. I love it. People who spend as much time. I spend a lot of time here, and I like it.
The president's use of the White House for campaign events has sparked criticism from congressional Democrats and other political opponents. Starting today, checkpoints to reinforce New York City's mandatory quarantine will be set up at key entry points in the city. NPR's Brian Mann reports the travel restrictions will apply to visitors from the 36 states with high rates of coronavirus infections.
New York requires travelers from states with high infection rates to self-quarantine for 14 days, with stiff penalties for those who don't comply. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio says Checkpoint will drive home the message that public health rules aren't voluntary. CEDO will lead the effort.
The Sheriff's Office will undertake quarantine crossings into New York City. Ensure visitors in New York is returning home are taking the necessary precautions.
New York was once the epicenter of the nation's COVID-19 pandemic with more than 23,000 deaths. The infection rate in the city has plummeted, and officials say they're eager to avoid a second wave. Brian Mann, NPR News.
Stocks are trading higher at this hour on Wall Street. The Dow is up 298 points. The S&P up 17. This is NPR News in Washington.
Live from Philadelphia, I'm Priyanka Kumar. As school districts prepare to return to learning this fall, Pennsylvania's top educational official announced he's leaving the job. For WHYY, Sarah Schneider reports Education Secretary Pedro Rivera will move on to be the president of a technology college in Lancaster.
Rivera will remain Education Secretary through September. His top lieutenant, Noe Ortega, was nominated by Chairman Tom Wolf to fill Rivera's position. Rivera has been part of Wolf's cabinet since his first term nearly 5 years ago. Before that, he was a teacher and principal in the Philadelphia School District. In a statement, Wolf praised Rivera's efforts to adopt the current education funding formula that was intended to equitably distribute money to districts. Ortega previously worked in the National Center for Institutional Diversity. He has led state efforts to diversify teaching ranks in Pennsylvania. Recent data show that less than 5% of the state's public education teachers are people of color. I'm Sarah Schneider in Pittsburgh.
Senator Bob Casey has asked the Senate to their plan to federal unemployment benefits for the CARES Act.
forward. Unfortunately, the Senate Republicans are deeply divided, and they do not have a consensus on what they want to do. Essentially not engaged in the discussions, so it's very difficult. Members have 24 hours notice. Obviously, we are getting later in this day.
It's been a major sticking point here. You've said before that this $600 a week or bust. You'd be willing to negotiate. Senator Schumer says it's not negotiable. Now the speaker is saying Democrats are open to tying it to the unemployment rate. Where are Democrats on this issue?
Well, I think what the speaker has done, Schumer has done, and what I said in the second hearing, that going from 600 to 200 cold turkey was not good for the economy and certainly not good for the families that are surviving health. Other components that are equally critical, dealing with state and local governments. They hire teachers, they hire police, they hire fire, they hire sanitation workers, and so many other critical employees necessary to confront the economic and health problems that are confronting the American people.
Well, are Republicans moving on that issue, Leader Hoyer? Because they didn't want any money for state and local.
You're absolutely right. If the states went bankrupt, the economy would be very badly damaged, and we would go into a deep depression. Now, we're struggling now, and the only thing that's kept us afloat is we've passed these 4 COVID-19 bills, this being the 5th, the HEROES Act. Republicans are ignoring the problem. The president said just yesterday, I think, when he was asked, what do you think about people dying? His response, it is what it is. I don't know what that means. The Republicans, both in the White House and in the Congress, have not led on this issue. We have in the House of Representatives. We've done what we should have done. We did it 2.5 months ago, and the Republicans have done nothing since to come up with an alternative that they can pass the Senate.
Well, Republicans have said very similar things about Democrats, that they don't believe that you're negotiating with them. I want to play you a message from Nathan Connor in Milwaukee, who has been unemployed for months. He's living in a motel at this point with his 6-year-old daughter, and I asked him what his message is for Congress. Here's what he said.
If they're not in a position where they have to ration out or think about which meal they're going to skip throughout the week so they can make sure their kid doesn't have to miss a meal, until they do that, they should not be bickering back and forth. They need to be together helping us all.
What is your response to him?
He's absolutely right. When you say the Republicans' message is the same, we passed a bill. Now, we can't act for the Senate. The Senate has not done its job. I don't know what they can say. We passed a bill. We think that bill meets that gentleman's problems and the problems of millions and millions of other Americans. Unemployment needs to be done. We are for that. The Senate says it's for it. But if that's the only thing you do, you will not have confronted the issues that need to be confronted. And that's what we have done, and we're waiting for a substantive offer to be put on the table to meet all of the problems, not just one of the problems. Because we're convinced if we do just unemployment, the senators and the Republican Party and the president are going to walk away from the table. We want to talk about a number, a lower number. We did $3.4 trillion. We think that's the number that's necessary, but if they have a lower number, so be it. We may solve only some of the problem, and we may solve it only for a short period of time. But having said that, we really have not gotten a substantive offer.
Let me finally ask you one question. Last night, longtime Democratic Congressman Lacy Clay lost his primary to a progressive candidate, Jory Booker. It's not the first loss recently by a Democratic incumbent to a more progressive candidate. What message do you, as the leader of the Democrats in the House, take away from that?
That was one race. I don't think there is a message to be drawn from that race. I think you can draw a message is that in the 2018 election, Democrats won 63 seats. 40 of them were seats held by Republicans or vacant. The majority of those members elected are focused on solving problems and serving the American people. I think Lacy Clay was a good member. He worked hard for his district and for Missouri, for St. Louis, and it was a close election, but he lost. And I don't think there's any big message about that race.
That is House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer. Thank you so much for your time.
You bet. Thank you very much.
And a spokesperson for Representative Hoyer wrote to us after the interview to clarify that he
them full military powers, so soldiers on the streets, and you know, and he wants to tell you a little bit about this destruction. You know, the prisoner of Beirut appeared on television in tears and has been quoted in local media as more than 40 million people's homes. Destroyed, according to him. Aerial footage shows the crew completely devastated and surrounding neighborhoods with black lights. Ammonium nitrate at the port blew up. We don't quite know the reason why it blew up. He said that there was an accident. Someone suggested that somebody was already been protesting against the ineffectuality of its budget.
I want to ask you more about that. We know that there is a serious economic crisis in Lebanon right now. People have been, as you said. Give us a little bit more context for this.
This really could not happen at the worst time for Lebanon. You know, Lebanese are wondering, what did we do to deserve this? Last year, the country was ravaged by forest fires. Then there were massive protests against climate action and we have very much a massive financial meltdown. So we're already in the throes of a huge economic crisis. You had the coronavirus pandemic. The government asked residents to stay indoors and ordered another shutdown of the country because it was struggling to cope with the second wave of the virus. And so, you know, some of the hospitals were damaged in this blast. And of course, you know, thousands of people have been wounded, and many of the hospitals are already full of coronavirus.